So you can grow potatoes here, and absolutely, I grow potatoes here, but they can't be grown here sustainably. You need to have your potato starch shipped in from wherever in February, and it's usually trucked in from somewhere far away. And then they grow, and then you're harvesting them around May or June, and you got all these potatoes, and if you don't refrigerate them, you're going to have a big pile of mush within about a month with the kind of heat we get in June. And you can't really, you have that storage problem through the summer in Texas. So, and the folks, we got this from, has anybody ever heard of the Homestead Heritage people? They're also outside. I don't know what it is about Waco. They're outside of Waco too. They're a great resource, by the way. They have a Center for Essential Education. They teach gardening classes, carpentry classes, homesteading classes. And they were like, yeah, they focus for their big calorie crops as sweet potatoes. Because sweet potatoes are just as nutritionally, they're just as calorically dense. They grow during the heat of the summer. They're a good crop for us here. They also do really well in fairly poor soils. So you can grow them in a lot of places without a lot of amendment. They don't need as much water as Irish potatoes. And you harvest them in September or October, and it's easy to store those guys, through the winter, and then get starts from them to plant again next year. By the way, fats. I know this whole culture is fat phobic. Fats are really hard to generate on a homestead. They really are. You've got to either grow sunflower seed, sunflowers, or if you think about it, fats and oils are really hard to come by. Maybe avocados, if you can get an avocado to grow up this far north, that'd be nice. Olives are a possibility. More and more people are growing olives. But fats are a real challenge. That 40-bed system that I had up there with the biointensive, that's a really low-fat diet. Some other crop distinctions for those of you that are getting new into gardening. Some crops are what we call heavy feeders, and that means they need a lot of nutrition in order to do well. They really need a lot of really good soil and a lot of nitrogen. So corn, tomatoes, these guys, they really just suck it right up. If you're growing lamb's quarters or amaranth, and they'll just take up all the nutrition you have. Some crops don't need as much, like sweet potatoes or turnips. Almost anything in the mustard family, they do fine. They usually do real well in not so great soils. The third one are beans and legumes, and they can actually add fertility to your soil. So it all depends on the relationship with those nitrogen-fixing bacteria, which most of the legume family has. But that's one thing to think about in your garden right from the beginning, to realize that some crops are going to take a lot more energy and time in terms of getting the nutrition for them. Corn, by the way, is not one of your most efficient crops to grow if you have really minimal space. Sweet potatoes would be a better option. Corn takes a lot larger area, and it requires a lot more fertility. I love corn, so we always grow some. The picture of our kids, I think on the cover of the DVD, kids, here it is. Kids are eating corn. Then somebody said there was a nightmare movie, one of those horror movies about the kids in the corn, and they said, should they use that picture? Okay. Well, gardening is a nightmare. We did get it right. Okay, so to get started, what are you going to do? First thing, go home, everybody go home, make a compost pile. I would highly recommend you start with a really small garden bed, really. My husband, he grew up south of San Antonio, somewhat rural family. His grandma had an acre garden that she fed the family and all the children in the neighborhood, and they always had this big, huge, they had more vegetables than they knew what to do with. I said, no, I'm going to grow a garden. I'll plow you up an acre. We got a bunch of land. I said, I don't know about that. So we plowed that thing up and we planted it, and we had an acre of weeds, and I'm telling you, a really experienced organic farmer will get their ass kicked by an acre. And that's a whole other thing. If you're wanting to, 2 acres will tire you out. It really will. You don't need a huge amount of land. It's nice to have a lot of extra so you can have some buffer or some wildlife or firewood or that kind of thing, but the land that you're going to intensively use as a family, I'd be very surprised if you use more than 2 acres. You really don't need a lot. In a suburban backyard, you can do a tremendous amount with. Okay, so start small. I really recommend just 1 bed and do good with that. And I did not give enough credit to Mel Bartholomew, who has Square Foot Gardening. He has a fantastic book and a lot of really great resources about starting small. And I didn't get to give him a plug in the video. because we try to give you resources to pursue things further. And but he has some really great materials, and square foot gardening is a great way to start. Another thing is, don't try to start from seeds right at the beginning. Just go ahead. We know spending $1 or $1.50 for a little broccoli plant, and you're going to get some broccoli out of it that would have only cost you $1.50 doesn't make, but it makes a huge amount of sense because you're getting the experience of it. And quite frankly, we're all busy. None of us have a whole lot of time for everything. You're just starting something new. Buy some starts from the nursery and get some experience going, and then start, planting seeds and going from there. But make it easy on yourself as much as possible in the beginning. I still buy about half of my plants I buy as starts from the nursery. I just don't have time. I blew it again this year on tomatoes. You've got to start your tomatoes from seed in January here in Central Texas, and you've got to start them indoors so that they'll be ready by March to put outside. And I don't know what I was doing in January. If anybody remembers, tell me afterwards. Okay, yeah, and I've just been amazed that people are out there like, we got to plant this according to the moon and all this. I'm like, no, get your fertility right. I'm starting to maybe look at doing some moon phases stuff now, but really focus on your fertility. Just start getting, some plants in there, learn some real basic stuff. You don't need to worry about it. Don't make yourself too crazy with companion planting. I mean, in the beginning, I was trying to get them, and I'm an engineer. Oh God, it drives myself crazy. We're going to get now into livestock. This is the meat part. And again, that 10-year deal. So on the gardening, you can see how 10 years it might could happen. A lot of plants you only get to try once a year. There's going to be a lot of failures. You're going to get everything eaten up by something. Or, my chickens got in there, destroyed it again. Can you want me some more starts, fun? And, like that. So livestock is the same thing. It's going to take a long time to get up and running. The backyard chickens or the rabbits. There's all what kind of breeds are you going to go for? There's a gazillion. Believe me, anything humans have done, there's a gazillion of it. So there's a gazillion chicken breeds and there's a gazillion rabbit breeds to choose from. How are you going to keep housing them? I can't tell you how many things I killed because they didn't have enough shade, or they were not warm enough, or all the different ways that you can screw that up. Watering, feeding them. Feeding is a really, really big one. I just definitely start out from the beginning and say I'm going to buy feed from the store, but later on, how am I going to, shift that into growing the food that I need for these animals? Healthcare, these things get sick and they need whatever they need, and whatever animal you're dealing with is going to be different. Goats are totally different from sheep that are totally different from cattle, and even different breeds within them may be different. But healthcare is a big issue. You're going to start figuring out how do you, this thing got wounded, how do you sew that up? Or you can't go to the vet all the time. We never go to the vet. We don't go to the vet. That's expensive. Reproduction and genetics, and the craziest thing is once you actually start breeding them and reproducing them, and then you're going to kill some, and what ones are you going to save, and how do you make those decisions? The whole genetics thing is huge. For predator protection, you like chicken, everybody likes chicken. Everybody, fire ants to, you name it, mountain lions, everybody likes chickens, and everybody's going to try and eat yours. And processing, just learning how to butcher. I still am not really that good with it. When I get done with it, they go, yeah, you butchered that. There's a lot of skills to learn. There really is a tremendous amount. It takes a lot of years to figure this out. So set yourself up with that expectation right in the beginning so you aren't disappointed, next month when it's not all coming out. In the beginning, I would recommend you only start out with 1 or 2 species. I don't know how many people I know that move out to the country, they go to homestead, and they buy a cow, and they buy a pig, and they buy a couple of goats, and they get some chickens, and some turkeys, and some ducks, and some geese, and they got a huge mess. Every week they got a huge feed bill, they're going to the feed store every week, and they got all kinds of strange things happening, and they're continually trying to keep up with all these animals and the different pens and all the different systems, and they're totally frustrated. And I really recommend just start out with one thing, whether it's chickens or rabbits or something, maybe 2 at the most, but you'd be surprised how much trouble even chickens can be. Definitely do not go out heritage first. I made that mistake. I'm going to save this breed, and I killed them. You know, it's just crazy how things die. We're not used to having to deal with, you know, the stuff that goes on with, you know, they didn't have enough water, or, you know, I thought they'd be warm enough and they all